Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the monthly live mineral webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the SMMP, and BlueCap Productions. Tune in on the first Wednesday of every month and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, #1 mineral talk show on the internet. I'm your host, Brian Swoboda, and if today's set looks a bit different, it's because it is. Fresh off my annual trip to the Saint Marie-Almin show, today I'm coming to you live from the incredible City of Lights, my favorite city in the world, Paris, France. Now, originally, we were trying to arrange it so that Eloise and I would be together here in my apartment, but unfortunately, Eloise is on a train out of Paris right now with spotty internet connection. So hopefully she'll be able to join us for most, if not all of the show. I think she's actually listening to the show, but the video might be a little bit difficult. So we're all sort of here. And so while I'm on the topic of partners that make up the Mineral Talks Live team, I want to emphasize that I only represent 1/3 of our merry little gang. The other 2/3 of our team, Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals and also the Paris School of Mines, and Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, make up the other 2/3. Proudly making Mineral Talks Live a majority female-owned endeavor. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Mineral Talks Live is a monthly mineral talk show that airs live on the first Wednesday of every month. Our goal has always been to connect you with other members of the mineral collecting community via our interviews with some of the best curators, collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and media people in the mineral world. If you happen to have missed any of our past interviews, don't worry your pretty little heads. You haven't missed a thing. There's a complete list of all those episodes along with links to those interviews at the URL located at the bottom of the screen. Now, one of the things that makes this program unique is that not only is it a live show, but it's a show where you get to interact with our guests. All you have to do to participate is to type your comments in the chat or the Q&A features, both of which are located at the bottom of your Zoom window. The chat feature allows you to instantly send messages to everyone watching the live show, so we encourage you to be as active as you'd like in the chat while we're talking. And while our guests and I generally don't see your messages during our conversation, throughout the show, both Raquel and Eloise will be monitoring the chat area and will be very active there. Occasionally, they may even interject a question or comment to us during the interview, so don't be shy if you want to ask something. Also, when you log in, we ask you to send a message to everyone letting us know where you're tuning in from so that we can see how far we're reaching around the world. If you happen to have a question directly for our guests, or maybe it's a bit more detailed or needs a bit of a longer answer, go ahead and use the Q&A feature and we'll get to those questions at the end of the show. Finally, towards the end of the program, you'll see a window pop up on your screen. This is our quick fire 5 question segment to see how well all of us know our guests. It's just a fun little way for us to get to know our guests a little better. So go ahead, play along. It can be a great icebreaker when you see our guests at the next mineral show. So if you know anything about what we call the Tucson show, you know that it started to really grow in leaps and bounds once the satellite shows started taking off. For years, one of the major satellite shows was the one held at the In Suites Hotel next door to where BlueCap Productions actually now has their studio in Tucson at the Tucson Fine Mineral Gallery. In its heyday, the In Suite show was the place to go to see a little bit of everything. And every year, the social media feeds would get flooded with photos of mineral people frolicking with the dinosaur statues, or trying yet again to eat the always too sour oranges that grew on the trees, or relaxing by the pool in the warm Tucson sun. It was, quite honestly, one of the places to visit in Tucson, and it was all run by today's guest, Marty Zinn. But Marty's influence didn't just stop there. Marty went on to produce many famous mineral shows, and through the years, he was almost equally as well known for building an incredible mineral collection. I can't tell you how many times in filming BlueCap's What Hot programs, we were told this is an ex-Marty Zinn piece. So it is my great honor and privilege to have this legendary, influential man on our show today. And Marty, as my first official act as host of the show, I want to acknowledge you and thank you for all you've done to the mineral world. I'd like to applaud you and welcome you to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, but thank you so much. You just pushed my ego through the roof. Thank you.
Well, Marty, it really has nothing to do with ego. It's what you've accomplished and what you've given to all of us. So honestly, it's the very least that I can do. And you deserve the recognition because you put a lot of long years into making, history, the history that we all remember. So now, Marty, on this show, it's kind of our honored tradition to begin our interviews with me asking our guests how they first got involved in minerals or mineral collecting. And I actually don't know this part about you. So I would love if you can share with us how you first got involved in the mineral world.
My family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada in 1950, 51, 50 or 51. And we connected with a elderly couple who were uh, true rock hounds. Their names were Bill and Maddie Brown. They actually had a lapidary shop in their garage at their house. And Bill Brown and Maddie Brown taught me how to cut and polish cabochons. They also took me on a field trip and showed me what collecting was all about. And I still have the piece that I collected back in 1952.
No way.
Near Hoover Dam on the Arizona side.
Now, did you do the polishing on that piece?
Yeah.
Oh, Marty, I love that you still retain that. That is fantastic. So when did you switch from lapidary to like mineral specimens?
Immediately. But my family got very lucky in Las Vegas when they contacted the young man who was running the local bar, and his last name was Giesler. So my mother and stepfather were buying minerals from this bar owner, and it turned out the bar owner was the son of Oscar Giesler, who was a major collector from Switzerland and had immigrated to San Francisco. The minerals that my mom and stepfather were buying were awesome. And the only one I remember was the pink fluorite on Swiss quartz that was glued on.
That was glued on. Wait, so your mom and stepfather were collecting mineral specimens before you started?
Absolutely.
Wow. What got them started? Do you know?
Well, I think Bill and Maddie Brown.
Okay.
This couple in Las Vegas.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And so now I've got a photo I'm going to pull up on my screen here, and I believe this is your first mineral specimen. Is that right?
This is a limonite after pyrite that I collected in Missouri from a stream bed.
Oh, that you field collected?
Yes. I just pulled it up out of the stream. It was no big deal, but I was on a special adventure viewing various places in the southwestern United States with a group of boys. And that's the piece that I picked up, and I still have that piece.
Oh my God.
The photo is much better than the piece, though.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The photo is much better than the specimen.
So, at what point did you start building a collection rather than just like getting one offs? I mean, like I said in my intro, you are extremely well known for putting collections together, and I've seen the photos from the Rochester show where you put in you filled all 50 cases. At what point did you start going from
That's the
collecting?
East Coast show. East Coast show.
Well, that was the East Coast show, right?
50 cases.
So at what where did you go from collecting? How did you go from collecting just like the odd specimens like this one that you field collected to actually starting to put together collections?
I would say the timing was when I returned from Vietnam in 1966. My mother had moved to Dallas, Texas after divorcing my stepfather. And she asked me to stay with her and unpack the minerals that had been boxed up some 8 years or 10 years before, and or 6 years before. And when those minerals came out of those boxes, it was absolutely the time when I caught the collector's disease. And I
Ah,
haven't been able to shake it. I am totally addicted to collecting not just minerals, but other things. But the minerals are certainly the main thing.
okay. So you have the collector's disease, so it's certainly more about the pursuit than the acquisition. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so you started building a collection, and what was the first? Describe the first collection that you actually built. Was there a theme, a direction?
Um, I would call it lack of direction, but
Lack of direction is a direction.
it's, it was sort of if I didn't have one, buy one. And I started going to shows. And when I got married in 1969, my wife and I would go to shows together and we would actually exhibit together. So that at that point, around 1970, I was just acquiring minerals. I can remember going through every single flat under the tables in Walt Lidstrom's booth in Fort Worth. And we were so excited because we filled a whole flat with minerals that we decided to buy. And none of them were very expensive.
Dynamite, dynamite. And then my understanding is that at some point you actually transitioned for a short period of time into being a mineral dealer. Is that right?
Yes, for that period of 19 in the 1970s into the 1980s, I became a mineral dealer in order to sell off the duplicates that I had acquired over those years.
So you were just so enamored with mineral collecting that you'd go and you'd buy whatever you could afford, and you were building up a large inventory, and you became a dealer to sell the excess.
Yes.
And how did that work for you? How was it being a dealer?
I enjoyed being a dealer. I did a lot of things that a collector might not do. I drove up to Silverton, Colorado to buy a collection. I actually drove to Fort Worth, Texas, from Denver to Fort Worth, Texas, one time to pick up mineral art. I found an artist that was doing oil derricks, and I was picking those up and then taking them back to Denver and selling them at shows in Denver. So
Mm,
it was fun. I enjoyed being a dealer.
okay.
I don't think I ever
And
made any money at it, but it was a lot of fun. It kept me out of trouble.
well, I guess that's the important thing there.
I ended up, Brian, being a vendor at the Travelodge Hotel in a satellite show in Tucson. And then when a room became available over at the Desert Inn, I moved over to room 107 with Don Zawater and Uli Buchard at the Desert Inn. That was in the
So
80s.
That was in the 80s. So then at some point, you went from mineral dealer to show promoter, which is a huge shift. Or am I missing something there?
Show producer.
Producer, sorry. Show producer, that's right. A promoter would just be promoting someone else's show, but you actually started putting together your own shows. So tell us about that transition from dealer to show producer.
Well, do you remember in the gold rush when
I
the
wasn't there, but yes.
in the 1849 and the 49ers, when the ship's captain couldn't get enough crewmen to sail, he'd go to the local bar and kidnap people, and they called it Shanghai.
Right.
Well, I became a show producer because I got Shanghaied.
By whom? Tell it. Okay, there's a story there. Let's hear it.
Tom Palmer, who was a show producer, and Harvey Gordon took me to lunch in Tucson and asked me to help them start a show, a satellite show in Denver. There had not been one in Denver. And I agreed to help them. They wanted somebody to go measure the rooms or do the groundwork. Palmer had already signed a contract, had the facility, had the venue at the Holiday Inn, and they wanted somebody to be the local representative. Well, what they didn't tell me is that they really wanted me to run the show because Tom Palmer never did get to the show until about the third go round. And they wanted somebody to run the show locally in Denver, but not make any money. So eventually I had to buy Tom Palmer out of that show. That was my first show.
Okay. All right. And that was the first show in Denver. And then when did you start the In Suite show? Was the In Suites the second show?
No. The second show was the East Coast Gem Mineral and Fossil Show in Springfield, Mass, which
Okay.
eventually moved to West Springfield, Mass. And that show was a result of my being shanghaied again by Ron Bentley, who lived in Connecticut and felt like there was a need for a big East Coast show.
Uh-huh.
So he had already checked out the facilities in Springfield and asked me to come up and help organize it. And that's what he needed was somebody to organize it because Ron, as nice a man and as knowledgeable about minerals as he was not a good organizer. So it fell to me to put the show together. And Ron actually drove to Detroit in a rental truck to pick up the showcases for our first few shows. He would drive from Connecticut to Detroit, borrow the Detroit Club showcases, and drive back to Springfield with these showcases so we could have exhibits. We were at the downtown location for 5 years and then moved over to West Springfield to what they call the Big E, Eastern States Exposition, into the Young Building, which was 130,000 square foot. And the adventures over in the Springfield facility were pretty wild. I'll just put it that way. I've got story after story on downtown Springfield.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Trust me, I've been at restaurants in downtown Springfield and being like, this isn't exactly what I thought it would be like. Very interesting. So then, okay, so after the East Coast show, the Springfield show, what was the next one?
Once again, I got shanghaied.
Man,
King Thompson.
you're starting to build up a reputation for being shanghaied.
Well, they found out I was able to run shows, to produce shows. So Wayne Thompson comes to me and says, "Hey, the Desert Inn is about to be condemned. We need a home. Will you please go out and find us a new location?" And I yes, well, why not? I need to provide us a location for these dealers to sell their merchandise. So I walked around, I looked around, and I walked into the Executive Inn Hotel at the intersection of Main Street and Druckman in Tucson. And I asked for the manager, and I was asked to sit down, and she said, "Hey, is there some way you can help me to get a mineral show over in my hotel?" I said, "There's other hotels." And I said, "I think I can work something out for you. Yes." At that
So you
point,
shanghaied her.
hey, it is what it is. But she actually asked me to bring a show to her hotel.
Oh,
And I
super.
said, "Yes, can we get it maybe 50 rooms and on the ground floor?" And she says, "Well, that's exactly what we've got. So, yes, yeah, I'll reserve all 50 rooms." I gave her the dates and we signed a deal. And I started going around the Desert Inn and the Travel Lodge and the Pueblo and signing up dealers to take these 50 rooms. And within about 3 days, I needed another 50 rooms.
Oh, come on.
Everybody wanted to move to that location. And that was really my first big show in Tucson, anyway.
Mhm.
Eventually, I had 3 locations in Tucson: the Mineral and Fossil Marketplace, the here I am doing a Joe Biden. Uh, the, the Executive Inn, the Mineral and Fossil Marketplace, and the third hotel, which escapes my memory right now,
Okay.
were very close to each other. And I had 3 locations in Tucson eventually.
Right on. Right on. And then when did the in suites come online?
I'm gonna I'm gonna say in the early 2000s.
Okay.
The hotel was sold uh, to a group of investors in Mesa, Arizona, and that the it was a Ramada downtown.
Okay.
And Ramada again approached me, knowing that I had already organized other shows, and the Ramada sales lady approached me and asked me if I could please bring a show, because the show that they had was being run by a producer by the name of John Scott, who only wanted the ballrooms. He did not have
Mm.
hotel rooms, and all he paid for the ballrooms, but he had nobody staying at the hotel. So they were looking over at the Executive Inn across the street, where I had filled 100 rooms with people staying in the rooms. They wanted the same treatment.
Right. Oh, fantastic. Now, Marty, there are so many intricacies to creating and producing a show. Talk to us about some of the difficulties and some of the challenges that you had to face that most people may not be aware of, because really, I have the utmost respect for you in putting something like this together. It seems as simple as, oh, well, we've got 50 or 100 rooms at a hotel. Fine, I've just produced a show. But it's a lot more complicated than that, isn't it?
Oh boy, is it? Yeah, absolutely.
How many hours do we have, right?
The job really requires a huge number of different skills You have to be great in personnel management, sales, training salespeople, layout design for the floor plans, insurance expertise, being a parking expert. And at one point, I was a traffic cop as well. You have to know a lot about printing and printing cost. You have to know about advertising on everything from newspapers to billboards and television. You have to know about insurance. You have to know about advertising. You have to know about your local zoning laws. And hopefully, you'll have a friend at the fire department that'll keep you straight. You also need to have languages and have some expertise in different languages. I dealt with dealers in Spanish, and I had staff that would deal with vendors in French, German, Russian, Portuguese, and more. So there was no limit to what the show producer had to do and had to know. I mean, how about leasing property from a trust in California? There's no end to what you end up doing. I built a road on the backside of the Hotel Tucson City Center so that you could go around the hotel. There's just no end to the various things you have to do as a show producer.
Well, I mean, and it sounds like you were all in because you obviously didn't come to the role with all those skills already set. So it was something that you had to learn over time. So was it a clean transition where you just stopped being a mineral dealer and started to become a show producer? Or was there something that kind of led you to stop? I mean, why couldn't you do both? I guess is the question.
The lesson learned there is if you're a mineral dealer, you don't really want to compete with your customers who are the show dealers. And I did start out as a dealer in Denver. And eventually, after about 2 years, I moved my room up to the third floor and just started being the show producer and not a dealer. But I did not want to compete with my customers. And I had in the third year, I had like 50 customers in Denver, and I didn't need to compete with them. I could make my money by being the show producer instead of selling minerals.
So was it equally satisfying in terms of just your interaction with people? Because as a dealer, you can have, sometimes just hanging out with people talking, as we do because we're a very social group. But once you become a promoter, you kind of lose that dealer part of it. But it seems to me that you would have almost more opportunity to socialize and hang out with your friends.
Except on setup day. The dealers learned rule number one: don't talk to Marty on setup day. He's got too damn many things going and he might yell at you. But on the other hand, on the setup day, when I finally calmed down, I could do some pre-show shopping. So my collector's disease was fed very nicely by being in the show before the general public arrived. So
I love it. I love it.
I enjoyed being a show producer, except on setup day. That was just not good.
You were nobody's friend on that day. So I think my notes are correct in saying that you had 10 different shows going on in different parts of the US during the year. Is that accurate?
Not all at the same time, but eventually I had as many as 10 locations. I had 2 shows in Costa Mesa, 3 shows in Tucson, 2 shows in Denver. I tried a show in Cincinnati, had a show in Springfield, Mass. I tried a show 3 years in Cartersville, Georgia. And I don't know if my math is correct, but I think that adds up to 10.
Which was your favorite and why?
Tucson,
Tucson. Okay.
because it lasted more than just a few days, and I could visit and schmooze and reminisce and enjoy visiting many, many, many friends that I had known for a long time and didn't get to see most of the year. Tucson became really a social event for me. Once the shows got started, I was free to go, uh, you know, flit about and visit and socialize.
Right on, right on. And so, for those of you who have not been to Tucson, trust me, it's something that you have to do. And although Marty's no longer involved in producing shows, it is quite an experience. I actually took my nephew to Tucson for his first time last year. And wow, he was blown away. He switched his major to be a geologist now. And I think he's going to come with me next year. So, Tucson is the place to be. Now, Marty, I'm looking at those paintings on the wall behind you, and I love mineral artists, and I know that you do too. So tell us about those paintings and who painted some of those.
I have been very fortunate to be associated with a number of mineral artists, starting in 1981 with Roseanne Fox from Cleveland or Cincinnati. And she started me on various paintings, but I also got very lucky and was able to get paintings from Wendell Wilson from
Mm,
91 to 2007. Even Everhard Equate threw me a couple of paintings in 1996, 97. And since 2008, I have been lucky enough to hook up with an artist from Massachusetts by the name of Fred Wilda and his partner, Helen Rodak.
hmm
Those paintings are behind me are Fred Wilda paintings. The three top ones are iron pyrite specimens from Spain that were used for an exhibit in Tucson. Then the other two tourmalines on the left, the rhodochrosite on the bottom, wolfenite, and the benitoite. So I have been fortunate enough to get him to do paintings for my shows since 2008, and his work is awesome. And Fred and Helen have just become incredibly good friends and supporters.
No, Fred is absolutely. He's been there as long as I can remember. He used to have a booth right in the front of the In Suite show. And actually, I have a painting of his of the Blue Cap candelabra hanging up in my bathroom back home that was gifted to me from Dave and Kathy Wasteman. And he's actually someone that we have to try to get on the show sometime in the near future. Now, Marty, let's start talking about your collections. Um, what was the first major, like high-end collection that you assembled?
Um, that's a good question. I really inherited some very high end things from my mother when she passed away in 95. And I did buy a number of things between 95 and 2005 when I sold the first collection. And I truly regret having let go of some of those specimens. In fact, I've repatriated over 100 of the specimens I sold in 2005 and have them back in today's collection. That
Oh,
would be
good for you.
of my mom, Betty Llewellyn, and myself, circa 1965, roughly, 1960 to
Right?
65.
So what, you were like 16?
Yeah. Well,
What year
19,
you were
yeah,
born?
I think 16, that'd be about right.
Is that right? Oh, good. Good guess.
That's just a guess.
Yeah. Okay,
Anyway,
well then yeah, go on.
I sold that collection in 2005. And before the ink was dry on the contract, I was out buying minerals for the next collection, literally at the Hotel Tucson City Center in Tucson. So I have repatriated as many over 100 pieces from that first collection and enjoy today having pieces from that collection.
So when you're building a collection or when you're adding pieces to your collection, first of all, how many pieces are currently in your collection?
3,500.
3,500.
Yes.
Marty, that's a huge collection.
Well, I'm told that Harvard has 40,000. So she's Raquel said, I've got 40,000 pieces, so that's not very many in your collection.
Wow. Okay, so when you're looking to add a new piece to your collection, what are you collecting? Are you collecting size? Are you collecting locales? What are some of the qualifications?
Well, first of all, I really like to buy things that nobody else has. I really enjoy, after as many years as I've been looking at minerals, I enjoy seeing something that I've never seen before and acquiring it. For instance, I have a quartz crystal that has sphalerite that has quartz on top of it, so that when you look at it, you can see the cap on the first quartz crystal of sphalerite, and then the quartz continue to grow on top of the sphalerite. That you don't see very often. Um,
Hmm.
Here, I've got one here. How many people have ever seen a quartz polyhedron that is rose quartz? Not, no, polyhedrons are commonplace, but I've never seen another quartz polyhedron in rose quartz. Have you?
Mm-mm. Superb. Okay, so in that case, it's oddities. You're drawn to oddities.
I absolutely am drawn to oddities. I'm also drawn to combinations. Here is a Kosovo purtite, pyrite, calcite, quartz, and rhodochrosite. 5 different minerals. Oh, wait a minute. There's a little galena down there too. 6 different minerals
Six.
in one rock. To me, to get 2 minerals on one rock is nice, but to get 6 different minerals on the same specimen is awesome. But,
So an oddity in a different way, an oddity that's odd because of the association, the minerals, the number of minerals on one specimen.
yes,
And what about size? Do you collect thumbnails, miniatures, cabinet size, all of the
yes,
above?
all of the above. Here's another oddity: a Brazilian geode with a starburst of calcite. Now, I'm sure there are others of these, but if I went out and tried to buy one, I might never be able to find one.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I mean, we've seen the calcites inside the amethyst geode, but nothing
Yeah.
like that I've not seen before.
Anyway, I look for things that I haven't ever seen before, I guess.
Okay, so that's one part of it, and I know that you like, um, casts and epimorphs. That's a big thing too. So that almost falls into that oddity. But you also collect incredibly aesthetic specimens, and I'm going to pull this one up just for fun as one example. Tell us about this and what drew you to this.
Oh boy. Ted Johnson sold me that at the East Coast show many years ago. It's a Arizona azurite rose. And just to find one that perfect and that lustrous, I just had to have it. And at the time, it was a lot of money, but I had to have it. I'm sorry. There are just so few of those available.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's doesn't have a Wilbur on it, as we like to say, but it is just incredibly aesthetically pleasing. So here is an example of you going not so much for oddities, but just something that is rare and incredibly
Yes,
beautiful.
a rarity.
Absolutely. All right, tell us about this guy here. Oh,
That is a Panascara apatite on
mhm.
matrix, and that picture doesn't do it much good. See if you can see this better.
All right, let's switch back. There we go.
And yeah, okay. This has the purple rim all the way around the apatite, the fluorapatite. And of course, it's on matrix. That helps. But this may be my favorite apatite by a long shot. Brian, one of the things I do is I collect suites of things. I enjoy sharing things by exhibiting at various shows. I don't compete, but I enjoy sharing
Okay.
various suites. So I might have 20 or 30 appetites, and that would be the best one I have. And I've put on exhibits of just nothing but appetite specimens. John Rackavon in New Mexico Tech is jealous because I have more appetites than he does. No, I have
Oh, yeah. And
good.
I'm sure he must love you and he's green with envy.
He's a nice guy.
Oh, John's a great guy. We had him on the show a while ago. So you love exhibiting because you're giving back and you're showing people and you're educating the public as to what's available. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, and I just enjoy sharing the things that I believe are aesthetic and wonderful, and I enjoy them every day. I go into the rock room and just enjoy seeing these things. And what is to me aesthetic is not necessarily aesthetic to the next person, but I have developed, just like Dave Wilbur invented the term Wilbur. There are certain things that I like a doubly terminated matrix specimen, and we call it a Marty rock. Here,
A Marty Rock.
I'll give you an example. That's a Marty rock with a doubly terminated calcite, copper included. That's a Marty rock.
Superb. That is absolutely superb, Marty. And so I'm going to pull up another specimen here. This is a fluorite. Tell us about this one.
Oh, that takes me back to the days of Pelapenko and when he showed up at the Denver show. I've never seen fluorites like that Russian brought to the Denver show. I mean, he brought in fluorites that were that clear and that beautiful, but they were 12 inches on a side. The Russian
Wow.
exhibit that year blew me away. That is a Russian. Um, I think it's a Dalnogorsk fluorite that's just gem clear, and it's
That
on
is
matrix.
superb. And I love that some of these pieces bring back very fond and important memories to you of not only the specimens but of the people. Tell us about this one.
Alfonso the okay, start over. Austenite from Mexico, Los Lamentos, Chihuahua, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the best austenites I've ever seen because of the crystal size. The specimen was part of a very large specimen that Alfonso Joaquin, I'm not sure of the last name, sold to me at the Denver show. And I bought this huge thing that had three different pockets on it. It produced a thumbnail, this is the cabinet size. It's about 4 inches by 4 inches. And then it produced a miniature as well, all of which I still have, but I had to have it cut up and prepped to make it into three specimens as opposed to the one when I bought it. Yes, a whale of mine, right.
Superb, superb.
But it's the best austenite I've ever seen. Usually austenite is microcrystals.
Wonderful. I'm going to go on to this guy right here. Another fantastic specimen.
An ex Marvin Rausch specimen. Marv was one of the founders of the East Coast Gem and Mineral Show, and he was a chemistry professor teaching in UMass and was just a wonderful mentor. He really helped me get started. But that is a Cobaltian adamite, again from Aminohuela, Mexico. It is about 4 inches and it's doubly terminated on matrix.
Superb. Tell us about this crystal clear fluorite.
That would be a Don Olson specimen, acquired from
Okay.
Don Olson many years ago. It is again Dalnogorsk, Russia, and it's just one of those things that we refer to as the ice cube fluorites. And they're few and far between. That piece is probably about 4 inches high as well.
That is superb. And you know that when you look at a piece like this, and it's interesting because this immediately you recognize as Dalnogorsk, and yet it's so different from this, which is also Dalnogorsk that we had talked about earlier. And it's just, I mean, two pieces coming from pretty much the same region. Incredible. What a difference they exhibit in the specimen. All right, Marty, I'm going to bring this one up as an absolute stunner, and I love these. Tell us about the story behind this, where you got it, and who you got it from.
Oh, that I got as a trade for a Australian mimetite, and it is absolutely a gemstone.
And do you have it? Is that the one that you have there?
Yeah.
Oh, superb. Oh man, that looks better in the video than it does in the photo because you can actually see the clarity through it. That's amazing.
I picked that up in a trade for an Australian mimetite, but I'd love to have the mimetite back. I miss these things, you know. When you fall in love with something, it's just because you let it go doesn't mean you're not still in love with it.
Sure, it doesn't mean you don't love it anymore. And you know, like you said, even with your mother's collection, there was a lot of repatriating that you got involved with. So this is a photo of you exhibiting part of your collection. Where was this and when was this?
I think if you could read that sign, it says new acquisitions donated by Marty Zinn, and that is a case in the New Mexico Tech Museum. And
speaking of John Rackavan, who's now the director over there.
That's correct. And this was when Virgil was running things, but I kept a number of things. These were new acquisitions, and I'm not sure if all of them or most of them or some of them. I know the top shelf came from me, but I think most of those were gifted to me over a period of years.
Superb. Now, this photo also, I believe that's you examining part of your collection that, well, I don't know. Tell me the story behind this. I believe that's some of your
That
pieces in the case.
that is a case of donations received from Marty Zinn at the Springfield Museum of Science in downtown Springfield. And I'm examining the minerals that are on display to try to find additional things they need that they don't already have. But those again are
Gotcha.
things I donated to the museum.
I love it. I love it.
And
And then Marty,
including
this is I'm
including
sorry,
one
say that.
including one rhodochrosite on the right that I'd love to have back. It's probably worth a hell of a lot of money.
I'm
Excuse me.
sure it is. I'm sure it is. And this we know is TGMS Benitoite exhibit that you put in. Fantastic. Um, were those all your pieces in that case?
Those are all my pieces. And that case was in memory of John Vivert, who was killed in
Yes,
an automobile accident the year before. And I decided somebody ought to just say nice things about John.
absolutely. And that one single crystal in the bottom left, holy cow, as Wilbur would like to say. That is amazing. That is huge.
Yes, thank you. And I still have all the bonitoites. I can't let go of them. It's just too many fond memories.
Superb. Marty, I'm going to ask Raquel to go ahead and launch the poll because we're about 10 minutes before the end of the hour. So we're going to go a little over time. You can just minimize that window. And while our audience takes that poll, I want to give you an opportunity to talk to us about what was the most difficult and challenging part of producing shows.
Well, okay. The most challenging part of being a show producer is dealing with 500 different independent businessmen, each of whom knows much better than I do what is good for them and what they would like to have and what they would like to do. Every single dealer has his own idea of the way a show should be run, and none of them agree with the show producer all the time. Sometimes there is agreement. Sometimes I even get patted on the back for the way I've run a show. Wayne and Donna Light have always been very supportive and helped me to get these shows straightened out because they think I run a good show. They're nice people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, working with 500 independent businessmen who all know much better what they think, how they think a show should be run. It's sort of like herding cats. It's very difficult, but you just do what you need to do and stick to your rules. My first rule of being a show producer is do not offend all of the mineral dealers at the same time.
At the same time,
Only
important
offend
qualification
them,
there.
only offend the dealers one at a time. But if you're in the show producing business long enough, you will eventually be able to offend all of the dealers.
Absolutely. Well, Marty, I think on behalf of the entire mineral collecting community, I have to thank you again for all you've done, all the shows you've put together, all the opportunities you've created to allow us to gather together and change both minerals and stories and entertainment. It is really such a huge part of our community. I mean, for new people who come into the mineral collecting world, I always explain to them, yeah, it's all about minerals, but there is such a huge social part of this. And that's the power of going to the show you just can't do online. So really, really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, hats off to you. I respect you so much. And probably from thing that time that you've put in and the history that you've touched. And you and I were talking before the show started, before we opened this up to the public, about years ago you'd started an initiative over at the Springfield show where you started collecting stories and recording these stories from a lot of the great people in our mineral world, many of which are no longer with us. And you congratulated me and the rest of the Mineral Talks live team for kind of carrying on that tradition. And I'm here to tell right now the viewing audience that a lot of what you gathered and you recorded, we're going to bring to BlueCap Productions is going to bring to the market or bring to the world so that we can all see it. And of course, you will get all the recognition for your part in doing that. So that's what started BlueCap Productions, the desire to start capturing these stories and sharing them with the public so that they're not forgotten and dismissed and never heard again. So what you've done and what you have accomplished is so important to the mineral collecting community. And I, for one, certainly appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I really enjoy the social aspect of the hobby more than anything else. It's really,
I'm sure you have
very, very nice people in the mineral industry, both dealers and buyers and sellers and curators and researchers. It's just a lot of really wonderful people to socialize with. It's been an honor just to be able to know these people over the years.
I 100% agree with you. So, Marty, we're going to switch the show now to the quick fire 5 question segment. And so, what this is, in case you're not familiar with it, is I have 5 questions I'm going to ask you. Each question has 2 answers, and you're going to share with me which answer you resonate with the strongest. Now, all of the viewers have already tried to predict and guess how you're going to answer. And so we're going to see how well the viewers know you. All of your answers are correct. So there's no making a mistake on your end. So are you ready for the 5 quick fire 5 questions for Marty Zinn?
Yes. Go for it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Question number 1, more fulfilling activity, collecting minerals or producing shows?
Producing shows. I really
Wow.
had a lot of very strong satisfaction from knowing that I helped a huge number of dealers and especially the younger ones getting into the business of producing shows.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Marty. Okay, so part of this is that I don't even know how you're going to answer. And so when I put these together, I'm kind of guessing, oh, I think he's going to answer this. I did not predict that. I would have said that the answer would have been collecting minerals, but we'll see at the end how the audience did. Question number 2, favorite drink, beer or margarita?
Well, it has to be beer because if I get 2 margaritas, I don't remember anything.
Ooh, okay. You don't remember that rhodochrosite that you gifted me after we had those 3 margaritas at the Denver bar?
No, I don't remember. 2 margaritas. I'm hopeless.
All right. Question number 3, favorite mineral, fluorite or tourmaline?
Tourmaline.
Tourmaline. Okay.
My favorite is the Manette tourmaline, which Jeff Scoville uses in his advertising So Jeff must think it's a pretty good tourmaline as well. It's got multiple tourmalines and quartz on matrix, and it just a very aesthetic mineral specimen.
Superb. Okay. Question number 4, favorite mineral size, miniature or cabinet?
Mm.
Oh, tough one, huh?
Miniature.
Miniature.
Yeah.
Okay. And the final question in the quickfire 5 for Marty Zinn. Favorite food, American barbecue or classic French cuisine? And I have to say that because I'm in France.
Seafood. Seafood.
Seafood.
Seafood.
That's not one of the options. You can't do that.
I was born in Louisiana, and I was crayfishing in the backyard at age 3. And the answer is, if favorite food has got to be seafood.
Okay, so then the answer to question number 5 is C, seafood.
Sorry, Brian. I just, that's the way it is.
Hey, Marty, I love it. You're the first one we've had on the show that's gone outside of the A and B. So congratulations. I will allow that answer. Okay, Raquel.
I have enjoyed the show immensely. And I would like to thank one other person for all of the help she gave me on all of these shows, and that would be Regina Almente, who lives in New Mexico and was my assistant show manager, and Laura Delano, who was my site director. But I've had a lot of help from a lot of people over the years.
Superb. Well, thank you for recognizing the people who have helped you. That says a lot about you as a person. So, Marty, if you can hang out, we're going to see how the viewers responded to the Quickfire 5, what they guessed you would say, and then we're going to open up for a Q&A to let the viewers ask you any questions. So let's go. Raquel, do you have the answers for the Q&A?
I do.
Super. Okay. Question number 1, more fulfilling activity, collecting minerals or producing shows? Marty, surprisingly, at least to me, went with producing shows. What did our viewing audience say?
89% agrees with you, Brian.
Oh, so they're shocked as well. They had expected Marty to say collecting minerals.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. See, Marty, people are getting to know you better. This is awesome. Favorite drink, beer or margarita? Marty admitted that he's a cheap drunk, so he's going with the beer versus the margarita. What did our viewers say?
Beer too.
Beer. So they got that one right. Fabulous. Favorite mineral, fluorite or tourmaline? Marty went with tourmaline. I was guessing he was going to go with fluorite because I've seen so many fluorites from his collection, and I've seen a lot of tourmalines, but I've seen more fluorites from photos of his collection. So what did the viewers say?
Same. They agree with you more than with Marty.
Well, we are all wrong, and that's the beauty of this program, because it allows us to know more about these people that we talk with. So Marty's favorite is tourmaline. Favorite mineral size, miniatures or cabinets? Marty went with miniatures, which slotted in exactly with what I thought Marty would say. What did our viewers say?
They agree with you, Brian.
Miniatures. Well, and I'm sorry. It sounds like this is really all about
Sorry,
me.
they
It
went
has
with
nothing to do with
cabinet.
me. It's all about Marty. And question number 5. Everybody got it wrong, because between A, American barbecue, and B, classic French cuisine, Marty went with C, seafood. So everybody got it wrong, but I'm interested in which of A and B our viewers chose. I was going to say American barbecue. What did our viewers say?
They agree with you again, Brian.
All right. Well, all of us are wrong. So that gives us 2 out of 5. We all failed. That means, Marty, when we see you at the next show, every single one of us owes you a beer.
Oh, that'll be good.
Artie, Raquel, do we have any questions from the audience that Marty can answer for us?
Yes, but before even I get into the questions, Marty, I want to make a comment that everyone on the chat was very complimenting, giving you thank you for all the years you have dedicated to the shows. And especially, I was really pleased to see the comment from Herboboda. He wrote, "It was so great seeing you, Marty. Brings back all memories. By the way, you never offended us. So what did we do wrong?"
Marty, could you call Herb when we're done with this and just offend him just so that he feels included?
Okay, I'll figure out something.
So
I've got a good story about offending Graham Sutton. Would you like to hear that story?
But of course.
Graham Sutton and his partner were on the second floor of the Holiday Inn in Denver selling these Utah azurites from LaSalle. And they had a room full of these things. And Graham comes down and says, Marty, what are my chances of getting a room on the ground floor? And I said, Graham, how many shows do you do with Martin Zinn expositions other than this one? And he says, none. And I said, well, that's your chances of getting a ground floor room. What can I say?
Marty, you know what I love so much about that? He most likely is bringing that same dry humor to him handling and managing the Mineral City show. So
Yes.
You've passed on a legacy.
Well, Graham says he learned a hell of a lot from me. What not to
I
do.
don't doubt
A
it.
few things to do. So he and I are now in the same category, show producers, along with Scott Worski and Dave Weisman and Leonard Himes and Laura Delano and all of the show promoters.
Absolutely. And I love all of you. Raquel, any other questions from the viewers?
yes, but I also so John Jasak, he also wanted to be personally saying thank you for all you have done to the community, among many others, but he also wrote it on the chat, on the Q&A. So going with the question.
John is over at the A.E. Seaman Museum in Michigan, and great museum. They're doing wonderful stuff. So I'm sorry, Raquel, I interrupted you.
No worries, no worries. So a question from Patrick. Hi, Marty. Have you got any cotterite variety of quartz?
What variety of quartz?
Cotterite? I'm also not familiar. Cotterite.
I do not recognize that name. I've got a lot of quartz, but I don't recognize that name.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to make it clear. And Don Newsom, do you collect fluorescence minerals?
No, I do have samples so I can show kids what fluorescence is all about. But in terms of collect a huge suite of fluorescent minerals, no, I do not.
Okay. What's your favorite mineral from Colorado?
Rhodochrosite.
Straight. What's your number one rule for producing shows?
I told you earlier, don't offend all the dealers at one time. Offend them only one at a time.
I love it. I love the qualifier.
That's the number. I got it in writing. That's the number one rule.
Where will be able to find you in Tucson 2025?
Find in Tucson.
Where will we find you next?
In Tucson? Mineral City. I spend hours down there. I figure that's my best socialization, probably in Scott Worski's bar room, which is his new room next to his show.
Stope. Yeah, it's called the Stope now.
Mhm. And I think that's about it, Brian.
Okay, all right. Well, Marty, you have something to add there? It looked like you were about to say something.
I just I get a huge ego boost when a dealer comes to me and says, "Thank you for running shows. You got me into the business. You provided an opportunity for me to sell things, and I got a good start at your shows." That is incredibly rewarding, and I say it's ego boosting, but it's something that just makes me feel like I've accomplished something over the years. I have enjoyed it. I love the people in the hobby and in the industry. And thank you so much for allowing me this hour of interview.
Marty, again, your ego deserves it. You deserve all the recognition. You've really given so much back. And my favorite thing to do is to recognize the people who make such a large contribution. And I know for you, it's probably more along the line of, hey, I was just trying to make a living. But from the outside perspective of what you've done and what you've given to us, it's our obligation and our pleasure to acknowledge it and to recognize you and to thank you for that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brian. Am I signing off?
Absolutely.
Okay. And
Yeah, so we're gonna bring this program to a close. Marty, thank you again so much for joining our Mineral Talks live conversation for this month. For all of you watching us, please tune back in next month. We're going to have another fantastic interview. And always remember, shakas and palakas. Be well. Take care.